In this episode, I want to go through 4 different parts of that music video. And the footage here is, of course, proxy footage. That was the first that I've shot, just concerts to have something to edit with. It's already a little bit further. But anyway, the song is about LA and written by Dale Daluk. And we want to take a look here, of course. As we have seen before, I use practical footage inside to convince finally that we have here reality in it. And this is all preview. It's not color graded. It's not treated any kind. And so bear with me here. So what I have done here is, of course, I have shot this area here with the camera, have projected it, and the whole part here is just a plane and then a little bit banded, something like a hill or the mountain object, for example. That's pretty much all, and I show you a little bit more, of course, how the background and all of that was done. It was a little bit more work, but only really tiny. Then my billboards here just stuck in. I have used, of course, inside of this scene an HDRI. I shot this from the bridge here, and that is pretty much the whole scene here. So I want to go from one billboard to the next with all of that in the middle. And as I use this view where the traffic is pretty much locked off and then go fast to the billboard, I get away with just a very simple way of projecting all of that. If you want to go further with that, you run maybe in trouble, but for that short second where this is in use, I would go always with that fast method. And of course, I could have shot this directly from the bridge, from a tripod, and then zoom out, zoom in, and just move the camera around. But then I would have stuck exactly with this camera move. And of course, I couldn't have adjusted maybe the background in the way I wanted. Now I could just swap it out because it's just an image in the background. I have shot that with an DSLR to get a higher quality, and that helps me, of course, in a huge way to get exactly what I want. I'll show you how I've done this in a second. Here you have the whole scene at once, and of course we go from one billboard to the next billboard. That's the whole idea. And the idea was also to just have the street animated or practical, and everything else I just used an DSLR to shoot this, so you can see the picture that I used here. So open in Windows, you can see that much bigger. This is pretty much the image that I have used with some Photoshop here to get rid of some areas and overpaint this. You can see this here on the sign, so I can move the camera a little bit back and forth. The signs, of course, needed to be on a plane, so I had that all in that way. Anyway, that is the whole area. And the beauty of this is now, of course, that you can paint here with stamp tools everything that you want to have in. If you want to have here maybe a red tree, then you paint one time this in, and it's there for the whole time. And that makes it so interesting. Of course, here with an alpha channel. So I have in the background the city visible. This here is the city, as you can see here on this little guy. And when I go to the luminance and open this as well, you can see here, this is the city. And I extended this down. So whatever I did with the camera finally, I had enough wiggle room, so to say, to see always behind these two hills. And so I could go also just inside and clean up maybe some areas where I said, it's not sharp enough, or it's maybe too sharp or too saturated. So I did it only once, and you can see here it's an HDRI finally that I have used because everything is here on top of each other. I think 9 exposures I took finally inside of that. And so I can have here a huge quality finally in the scene. And for the small part where the cars are running, I have used in this case here a Sony X1. In future I use a red for something like that, and maybe on the end of the course I have even this footage in red for you as well. If you like, please ask me in the forum. So this is pretty much the whole scene. Of course, we want to see how it looks like in the editor view, and this is all. Just 3 planes. Have you thought about that? And I use here, of course, masks in it. I show you that here as well. And when I say the whole scene, of course, I have a sky object here. This time just the sky as a sphere. And I have baked one sky here just to have a fast forward move here. So I have one time the cars here. You see here the editing. It's on top. So I had to find the camera position for the cars and for the photo here. And I did this here again to have a little bit in the back as well. So I have a little bit movement from here to here. See, it's exactly the same stuff. And then in the far background to have exactly the right parallax, I have that city. That's the whole thing. Very simple, of course, and strong move. Maybe let's have a look to this camera. You see here, that goes just into it. And practically besides these billboards, you look at 3 planes. That's all. And just to get here a little bit movement in the trees to have the illusion there's something. Okay, let's have a look to the next one. In this preview here, and sorry for the bad quality, this needs to be color corrected and everything else, I have again a mixture out of 3D elements. That means here the billboards with the scaffolding and the fence here again. I don't like to have these fine things as alpha channels, especially when you look through them and they change heavily. So there I put just 3D in it. Everything else is just a box. A box here, a box there, and here on top of that. And the beauty again is you work with pictures here. And I had some graffitis here that I could just overpaint because I don't want to have other people's artwork in it. It's maybe an expression that I don't understand because they have language on their own, and so I was not certain to keep those things in it. Of course, all these windows here have reflection that is maybe visible then in the final version. At the moment you see a preview here, and inside of these frames you have the next scene, of course, which we have seen before several times, I guess, already. So let's have a look to this scene in Cinema 4D. So here you get already a hint for the 3D objects in the lower right part. Then that I have used Google Maps here to just get my stuff orientated, which helps sometimes tremendously because it's very precise when you think of your own shooting here, maybe. At least my shooting where I run and gun, because in LA you are not allowed to put a tripod on the floor without a license, and to get always okay, you get the story. I don't want to go deeper into that. I have here also in the background again just facades that I shoot normally from the most or greatest distance possible, and then I use in Photoshop just the perspective to get them in a rectangle. And these are great just to have them as reflection in the scene, and the reflection goes then here into the windows, which you see here, all these ways that I have discussed before inside of this series. And of course, to have just an image to project on something allows me here very easily to change the signs of buildings, to get rid, as I said, of graffitis here and stuff like that. This is the one that I have painted there, but you can do that very easily. And here, these windows here are just reflecting the real sky here. So let's have a look to the editor view, and I go here into the full view. I go here out maybe, and a little bit down, a little bit more out, and then I rotate this, and you can see here that's the whole scene. Looks maybe on first glance a little bit complicated. These are all these planes where I have my reflection guides on it. Also here, this is nothing that you can see from this camera. This is the main camera here. Show that how it moves. It goes from here to here. I have shown that before, but just to give you all the details here now, this is the side that we see in the QuickTime, where the camera moves very close to give an idea where we are with the camera. So that goes here and then it goes there very nicely. And then we have pretty much everything. There's not so much stuff in it. It looks always good from one very specific point. Anything else, I would think it falls apart. And when you take the reflection stuff here even away, then we have here maybe 3, 4, 5 planes only with material on it. But exactly how they are positioned in the scene gives you then the perfect illusion of that scene. And you can move the camera in the way you want, and you can paint facades and all of that. As you can see here, I have used here an application, Tree Onyx or Tree Pro or whatever the name is. I use it since 1993, and every time I think, oh, I can use a tree, I build some new trees for my needs. And with this option here, it works, of course, fantastic to just have an XREF in it to keep the file size small. This whole file here has only 1.5 megabyte. So when you have all the textures already somewhere, to send a new file is really easy. That goes with a standard email. So, okay, that's pretty much another one. Very simple. And okay, let's do the fun and render this one time so you can see what you have here finally with the reflection. And by the way, this is not reflection, this is really background. And I've used this image here several times for reflections and for background. Okay, you see here the whole thing, and we had some, or I had some shadows here for trees, but I didn't go that deep with the camera. But I prepared the whole building here. You can see maybe here some reflections in it. Everything is there, and a little bit details here in the facade, of course. It's always just to get away with the least amount of work and the most amount of details. To keep that balance in a nice ratio, that's the key. And I think this here is pretty much where I want to have the scene. Maybe you have another idea, of course, about that, but let's have a look to another. So, and for this I have put some music underneath. Okay, that was fun for me at least. And I put the sound here down. And this is for me just a demo object to illustrate what I'm doing, because when people do music, they have maybe not the indirect in view to camera projection. And it should look all totally real with the light in it. And here I have avoided to go into reflection because that would have been an overkill. I only want to go from one billboard to the next, not here in this scene, because I didn't want to give that idea too early away. And when you take a look, that's all it is. It's a cloud of little planes. And when we find then finally the viewfinder here, then everything lines up and we have a nice view from the Pershing Square. All in preview quality, very small here. But I think you get the idea. So let's have a look to this here was the first test of the whole scene, and I have to tell you that was one of the earlier versions. And you can see here how the camera calibrator comes into the game and helps me here exactly to get all these buildings and vanishing points as I needed them. Here we are on the Pershing Square, at least in my scene here, because on Pershing Square you don't have these billboards there. These are just my invention for this place. I don't know if people would like to have them there because they are huge. And I want to show you, of course, here exactly what's all about. And this is the chaos finally, all these boxes and painted on top of each other and just took whatever was needed to get this effect done. And we have a lot of just 2D planes in it. And when I go to my editor view, then we can see we have here just a huge variety of stuff. The green park area has an alpha channel on top of that. Then we have here a building where the street is with the palm trees. Then we go up, up, up with the buildings in the background. And this is a very interesting example because sometimes buildings that have a huge distance, but when they are huge by themselves, larger than maybe this building or this building, then we should consider, even with the background quality that they have, to give them a little bit of geometry. And I will show you that here, of course. Go here inside, move this around. You see here, I'm frugal really with geometry. It's not even a cylinder, it's only just a small little part of it. This building here needed a little bit more because it has a round shape and some areas that are flat. I go closer to it. And of course, there are projections through it. But from the point of view where I was, I don't move the camera so much that this distance one would have any need to be really cleaned up or so. It just works. And this building here, for example, in the background, the AT&T tower, was just too far away to bother at all with anything. And it's only short in the picture. So when the camera moves only along without unveiling really a structure, a 3D structure, then don't bother. A picture might be enough. And of course, check the scene always in terms of what would be interesting to you or what interests the eye from the audience, and there put your attention to it. I have to find here my main camera again, sorry for that. And exactly where the main focus goes, there goes also the most energy for the picture. Not to say that you can go really sloppy with anything that is a little bit on the border, but I try always to have these tiny little things here inside that gives a little bit parallax away, and just to convince, not to say, hey, I'm here in the middle point and I give everything. It's these tiny little things. When someone goes here on that billboard and put your attention exactly on that spot, you want to have here that parallax, not here. And that's of course up to you how you create your scene and how you create finally that effect. Keep always in mind the audience is the one who can't really capture the whole frame here at once. There's always attention here or left or up or so. And you are the director and the cinematographer for that. You have finally to decide what they see, or you want, of course, what they see. Okay, that sums it up, and I say thanks for staying tuned with this long series. I hope I could share a lot, and of course I will give you some final words on the end. If you want to listen to that or not, is up to you. No new material will be unveiled, of course. Thanks for listening. Have fun.